Morning.
You've done an enormous amount of great good since you've been in post. When the remarriage of divorcees came into legislation in churches, it was left to clergy's own conscience as to whether or not they carried out these services. Why is that not the case when it comes to same-sex blessings, and why can't clergy be left to their own conscience while we're waiting for the synodical process to happen if there's going to be a change with regard to equal marriage in church, which so many of us want?
Are you a member of the clergy, Kez?
I am, yes.
Kez, thank you very much. I think we can't just... I think, as I said at the beginning of the programme on something, on a similar question, one of the things I recognise very much from the work I do is what we say here is heard around the world. And people really worry about what we say here because for historic reasons we're linked, not just the Anglican Communion, but particularly that, but we're linked to churches all around the world. And so before we make a major change in how we understand what we should do, we have to listen to people and go through a process of consultation and talking to people and listening very carefully and praying. And then without predetermined outcomes. Now, why can't we just do it now? Because the impact of that on Christians in countries far from here, like South Sudan, like Pakistan, Nigeria, and other places, would be absolutely catastrophic. And we have to love them as much as we love the people who are here. And at the same time, we have to listen incredibly carefully to the LGBT communities here and listen to what they're saying. And we have to look at the tradition of the church and the teaching of the church and the teaching of Scripture, which is definitive in the end, before we come to a conclusion. But we're not in a position just to suddenly say, OK, our position in this country has changed. We are one of the great international groups that there is in this world. We are massively majority, yet, not in England.
I mean, a gay Christian listening to you there may have heard the message that he or she can't marry their partner in their church because of the conniptions it would give to some African, dare we say, less enlightened people in Africa.
Well, I don't think we dare say less enlightened, actually. I think that's a sort of neo-colonial approach, and it's one I really object to. I think it's not about them having conniptions and sort of, getting aerated. That's nothing to do with it. It's about the fact that I've stood by graveside in Africa of a group of Christians who'd been attacked because of something that had happened far, far away in America. And they were attacked by other people because of that. And a lot of them had been killed. And I was in the South Sudan a few weeks ago, and the church leaders there were saying, please don't change what you're doing because then we couldn't accept your help and we need your help desperately. And we have to listen carefully to that. And we also have to listen incredibly carefully to gay people here who want to get married, and also to recognise that any homophobic behaviour here causes enormous suffering, particularly to gay teenagers, something I'm particularly conscious of at the moment. And we have to listen to that very carefully and work out what we do. But all I'm saying is really not a simple issue. And there's a huge danger in trotting out simple solutions to really complicated issues which have huge effects on people's lives.
And yet at one point the same would have been said about women bishops. You were fairly unequivocal on that you hope to see one ordained at the beginning of next year. Can you imagine a day when two people of the same sex will be married in an Anglican church?
Well, there's already parts of the world where that does happen. So I don't have to imagine that
here.
I don't know. I'm personally, I have a real. I look at the Scriptures. I look at the teaching of the church. I listen to Christians around the world, and I have real hesitations about that. And I'm incredibly uncomfortable saying that because I really don't want to say no to people who love each other. But you have to have a sense of following what has the teaching of the church is. We can't just make sudden changes.
You've been portrayed previously as wrestling with that and perhaps moving away from that hesitance that you've described. Does this signal that you've returned perhaps to your...
No, It's something I wrestle with every day and often in the middle of the night. I'm incredibly conscious of the position of gay people in this country, how badly they've been treated over the years, how badly the church has behaved. And at the same time, I'm incredibly conscious of what I saw in January in the South Sudan, in the DRC and other places.
Can I just clarify this?
It's not a simple issue.
So a Christian on the ground in Africa could end up being on the receiving end of violence and abuse because of a decision taken at Lambeth Palace about sexual equality, about gay marriage?
Yes, precisely.
That's not something I've heard before.
I'm afraid it's only too sadly true.
So the Christian becomes typified as
they
part
say,
of what is perceived to be the problem.
Yeah, what was said is if we leave a Christian community in this area, I'm quoting them, this is not obviously something I think, if we leave a Christian community in this area, we will all be made to become homosexual, and so we're going to kill the Christians. The mass grave had 369 bodies in it, and I was standing with the relatives. That burns itself into your soul, as does the suffering of gay people in this country.